boom, Iran's supreme leader has disappeared. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the man who has ruled Iran with absolute power for 36 years, is now hiding in a fortified underground bunker 100 meters beneath Tehran. He hasn't been seen in public for 10 days. He hasn't posted on social media since January 17th. And for the first time in the history of the Islamic Republic, he has handed day-to-day control of the government to his son. This isn't a rumor. This isn't speculation. Multiple intelligence sources confirm that Khamenei moved to the bunker on January 24th after senior military officials warned him of an imminent U.S. airstrike. But here's what makes this story truly explosive. British intelligence has uncovered a secret escape plan codenamed Plan B that would allow Khamenei to flee Iran entirely and seek asylum in Russia. The plan includes evacuating 20 close family members and aides, and it involves transferring $95 billion in hidden assets out of the country. Sound familiar? It should, because this is exactly what Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad did 3 months ago when his regime collapsed. He fled to Moscow with his family and his fortune, and now he's living in luxury while his country burns. Iran's supreme leader is preparing to do the same thing. Let me walk you through what's happening right now, because the next 72 hours could determine whether Iran's theocracy survives or falls. On January 24th, Iran International, a Persian-language news outlet with deep sources inside Tehran, broke the story that Khamenei had been moved to a secret underground facility in the Lavazan neighborhood of Tehran. This isn't just any bunker. This is one of the most fortified structures in the entire Middle East. According to intelligence reports, the bunker is located 90 to 100 meters underground. Deeper than a 30-story building is tall. It's protected by multiple layers of reinforced concrete designed to withstand bunker-buster bombs. It has anti-aircraft missile systems positioned around the perimeter, and it's connected to a network of underground tunnels that would allow Khamenei to escape if the facility comes under attack. Iranian officials claim this bunker is more secure than the Fordo nuclear enrichment facility, which was hit by US B-2 stealth bombers last June and sustained massive damage. But here's the critical detail that confirms this story is true. Khamenei's son, Masoud Khamenei, has taken over daily operations of the Supreme Leader's office. Masoud is 53 years old. He's a mid-ranking cleric with almost no public profile. Most Iranians didn't even know his name until 3 days ago. But according to sources inside the regime, he is now the primary point of contact between Khamenei and the Iranian government. That means every major decision, from military operations to economic policy to the ongoing crackdown on protesters, is now being channeled through Masoud instead of directly through the supreme leader. This has never happened before in the 47-year history of the Islamic Republic. Even during the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s, even during previous protest movements, Khamenei remained visible and in control. He gave speeches, he issued public statements, he projected strength, but now silence. His last post on X, formerly Twitter, was on January 17th. That was 10 days ago. His official website has published no new speeches since January 9th. Iranian state television hasn't shown footage of him addressing crowds or meeting with officials. The man who built a cult of personality around being the guardian of the revolution has gone into hiding. And that tells you everything you need to know about how terrified he is right now. So why is Khamenei hiding? What is he so afraid of? The answer is simple. He believes the United States is about to launch airstrikes targeting him personally. Let me explain the timeline that led to this moment. On January 23rd, President Trump said aboard Air Force One that the U.S. is sending a massive fleet toward Iran. He confirmed that the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, along with 3 guided missile destroyers, squadrons of F/A-18 Super Hornets, and F-15 Strike Eagles, is now positioned in the Indian Ocean just days away from Iranian waters. Trump also made a very specific and very personal threat. He said that if Iran kills more protesters, the U.S. response would make last year's strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities look like peanuts. And he added that it's time to look for new leadership in Iran. That wasn't a vague warning. That was a direct call for regime change, and it gets worse for Khamenei. On January 21st, Iranian General Abolfazl Shekarchi, a spokesman for Iran's armed forces, issued a warning that revealed just how seriously Tehran is taking Trump's threats. He said, "Trump knows that if any hand of aggression is extended toward our leader, we will not only cut that hand, but also set fire to their world." Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say, if you attack Iran. He said, if you attack our leader. That means Iranian intelligence has credible information that the U.S. is considering a decapitation strike, a targeted assassination of Khamenei himself, and that's why he's hiding in a bunker 100 meters underground. But there's another layer to this story that most media outlets are missing. Khamenei isn't just preparing to survive an airstrike, he's preparing to flee the country entirely. On Sunday, the Times of London published a bombshell report revealing that Khamenei has a fully developed escape plan, dubbed Plan B, that would allow him to evacuate to Russia if the regime collapses. The plan includes evacuating approximately 20 close family members and senior aides. It involves pre-positioned aircraft and safe routes out of Iranian airspace. And this is the most important part. It includes a mechanism for transferring Khamenei's massive personal fortune out of Iran. How much money are we talking about? According to a 2013 Reuters investigation cited by The Times, Khamenei controls assets worth approximately $95 billion. That fortune is held through a shadowy organization called Satad, officially known as the headquarters for executing the order of the Imam. Satad controls everything from real estate to oil refineries to telecommunications companies. It operates like a parallel government, collecting revenue that never appears in Iran's official budget, and it answers directly to Khamenei, not to the elected president, not to parliament, not to anyone else. If Khamenei flees to Russia, he's not going to leave that $95 billion behind. The Times report suggests that part of Plan B involves moving those assets, likely through cryptocurrency or offshore accounts, so they can be accessed from Moscow. Sound familiar? It should. Because this is exactly what Bashar al-Assad did when his regime fell in Syria last November. Assad fled Damascus with his family in the middle of the night. He boarded a plane to Moscow, and he took billions of dollars in stolen Syrian wealth with him. Today, Assad is living in a luxury apartment in Moscow. According to The Guardian, he's studying Russian and brushing up on his ophthalmology, his original profession before he became a dictator. He's not in prison. He's not facing trial for war crimes. He's living comfortably under Putin's protection. And Khamenei knows that Putin would offer him the same deal. In fact, the Times report notes that Khamenei has previously said he admires Putin and believes Iranian culture is more similar to Russian culture than to Western values. That's not just personal preference. That's a political alliance. Khamenei and Putin have spent years building a strategic partnership. Russia has sold advanced weapons systems to Iran. Iran has provided drones to Russia for the war in Ukraine. And Moscow has consistently protected Tehran at the United Nations Security Council. If Khamenei shows up in Moscow with $95 billion and offers to continue that partnership in exile, Putin will absolutely take that deal. But here's the question that should terrify everyone watching this situation. If Khamenei flees Iran, what happens to the country he leaves behind? Remember what happened in Syria. When Assad fled, the regime didn't just collapse peacefully. The country descended into chaos. Multiple armed factions fought for control. Civilians were caught in the crossfire. And the humanitarian catastrophe that followed is still unfolding today. Now imagine that scenario in Iran, a country of 89 million people with a massive military, thousands of ballistic missiles, and a nuclear program that was 80% of the way to a bomb before the U.S. struck it last June. If the Islamic Republic collapses, who takes control of those weapons? The Revolutionary Guard? They're the ones who massacred thousands of protesters over the past month. They're not going to hand over power peacefully. The Iranian military? They've been sidelined by the Revolutionary Guard for decades. They don't have the political power to govern. Pro-democracy activists? They've been arrested, tortured, and killed by the thousands. The survivors are in hiding or in exile. The reality is that if Khamenei flees and the regime falls, Iran could fracture into competing power centers, each armed, each desperate, and each willing to use violence to secure their position. That's the nightmare scenario. But let's go back to what's happening right now, because Khamenei hasn't fled yet. He's still in Iran. He's still technically in control. But the fact that his son is now running daily operations tells you that something fundamental has shifted. Let me explain who Masoud Khamenei is and why his sudden prominence is so significant. Masoud is the third son of Ayatollah Khamenei. He's a Shia cleric with a relatively low rank in Iran's clerical hierarchy. He's never held a major government position. He's never commanded military forces. He's never been involved in foreign policy. What Masoud has done for the past 2 decades is manage his father's communications and media operations. He runs Khamenei's official website. He oversees the production of speeches and public statements. He coordinates messaging with state media. In other words, he's a behind-the-scenes operator, not a public leader. And yet, according to multiple sources cited by Iran International, Masoud is now serving as the main channel of communication between Khamenei and the government. That means when Iran's president needs a decision, he talks to Masoud. When the Revolutionary Guard needs approval for a military operation, they go through Masoud. When the judiciary wants to execute more protesters, they get authorization from Masoud. This is an extraordinary transfer of power, and it raises an obvious question. If Masoud is running things, why doesn't Khamenei just step down officially and name a successor? The answer is that naming a successor would be an admission of weakness. It would signal to Iran's enemies, both foreign and domestic, that Khamenei is vulnerable. It would invite challenges to his authority from other power centers within the regime. So instead, Khamenei is hiding in a bunker while his son runs the government in his name. It's a bizarre hybrid arrangement that can't last very long. Either Khamenei will emerge from the bunker, proving he's still in control and willing to face the threat head-on, or he'll flee to Russia, abandoning the Islamic Republic he's ruled for nearly 4 decades. There's no middle ground here. Now, let me tell you what's happening on the ground in Iran while all of this is unfolding. The protests that started on December 28th have largely been crushed. Internet access remains almost completely shut down. Mobile phone networks have been severely restricted. Tens of thousands of people have been arrested. But the scale of the violence that was used to suppress those protests is truly staggering. On January 25th, the New York Times published a report based on leaked documents and eyewitness testimony that confirmed Khamenei personally ordered the Supreme National Security Council to crush the protests by any means necessary. Security forces were deployed with shoot-to-kill orders. They were told to show no mercy. The result was a massacre. According to the U.S.-based human rights activist news agency, at least 5,459 deaths have been confirmed as of Saturday, but the real number could be far higher. Iran International, citing leaked government documents, reported on Sunday that the death toll could exceed 36,500 people. That figure is based on internal reports from the Revolutionary Guard Intelligence Division and the Ministry of Interior. The Iranian government officially admits to 3,117 deaths, but even that number, which is almost certainly an undercount, represents the deadliest protest crackdown in Iran's modern history. The New York Times spoke with multiple eyewitnesses who described scenes of absolute horror. A 50-year-old woman in Tehran watched her husband get shot in the back by Basij paramilitary forces. She said a Basij member pointed a gun at her and threatened to kill her, but had run out of bullets. A shopkeeper in the Tehran Pars neighborhood watched two young men get shot in the back while running away from security forces. A cousin of a woman named Nasim Pouragayi described how Nasim was shot in the neck in front of her husband. She fell to the ground, vomiting blood. Her husband carried her body for over an hour trying to reach a hospital. She was pronounced dead on arrival. The main morgue in Tehran Karizak Forensic Center was so overwhelmed with bodies that officials set up a makeshift outdoor morgue where families were shown photographs of the dead on a television screen and told to identify their loved ones. Verified video footage shows nearly 300 body bags laid out on sidewalks outside the morgue. This is what Khamenei ordered. This is the legacy of his rule. And now he's hiding in a bunker because he knows that if the regime falls, he will be held accountable. So what happens next? Here's what you need to watch in the coming days. First, does Khamenei emerge from the bunker? If he appears in public, gives a speech, or issues a defiant statement that tells you he believes the immediate threat has passed. But if he stays silent, that tells you he's still waiting to see whether Trump will actually launch strikes. Second, does the internet come back online in Iran? The regime shut down the internet on January 8th, nearly 3 weeks ago. They've kept it offline to prevent protesters from organizing and to stop information about the massacres from reaching the outside world. If they restore internet access, it means they feel confident they've crushed the uprising. If they keep it offline, it means they're still afraid. Third, what does Russia say publicly? So far, Moscow has been relatively quiet about the protests in Iran. But if Putin makes a statement offering support to Khamenei, or worse, offering him asylum, that's a major signal that the regime is in serious trouble. Fourth, does Trump order airstrikes? The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is now in the Indian Ocean. It's approximately 48 to 72 hours away from striking range of Iranian targets. If Trump was serious about his threats, this week is when we'll find out. And finally, watch what happens with Mojtaba Khamenei. If he starts making public appearances, giving speeches, or issuing orders in his own name, rather than just acting as a messenger for his father, that tells you the regime is preparing for a formal transition of power. Let me put all of this in historical context. The Islamic Republic of Iran was founded in 1979 after a popular revolution overthrew the Shah, a Western-backed dictator who had ruled Iran with an iron fist for decades. Ayatollah Khamenei, the architect of the revolution, promised Iranians freedom, justice, and an end to foreign interference. What they got instead was 47 years of repression, corruption, and economic collapse. Khomeini died in 1989. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei took his place. And for the past 36 years, Khamenei has ruled Iran the same way the Shah did, through violence, censorship, and fear. But the Iranian people have never forgotten what they were promised in 1979. They've never stopped demanding freedom. They've protested in 2009, in 2017, in 2019, in 2022, and again now in 2026. Each time the regime has crushed them. Each time thousands have died. But each time the protests have gotten larger. Each time the slogans have gotten bolder. And each time the regime has had to use more violence to maintain control. This time, something is different. This time, the supreme leader himself has gone into hiding. This time, he's preparing an escape plan. This time, he's not sure the regime will survive. And if Iran's supreme leader doesn't believe the Islamic Republic can endure, then why should anyone else? The question now is not whether change is coming to Iran. The question is what kind of change it will be. Will it be a negotiated transition that avoids further bloodshed? Or will it be a violent collapse that plunges the country into chaos? Will the Iranian people finally get the freedom and democracy they fought for? Or will they end up with another authoritarian regime, this time backed by Russia instead of the West? Nobody knows the answer yet. But what we do know is this. The supreme leader of Iran is hiding in a bunker. His son is running the government, and a U.S. carrier strike group is steaming toward the Persian Gulf. The next 72 hours could change everything. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because this story is moving fast and you don't want to miss what happens next. Iran's theocracy is on the edge of collapse, and the whole world is watching.